This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
It's going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Happy New Year. As we roll into 2025, as I record this, it's still 2024, but for all intents and purposes, anyone that listens to this, it's officially 2025, and I hope it was a happy, healthy, fun New Year. The days of my going out and drinking my face off for New Year's have long since passed me by, but I do remember them fondly, or not so much as the case may be. But I hope yours was a memorable one. Or if it wasn't memorable, hey, sometimes those are the fun nights when you actually don't know what happened. And it sounds, kind of silly to say, or I guess I haven't grown up yet. But regardless, I hope it was nice. I hope it was fun. And now we get to go into 2025. Hopefully feeling better for those of you who did go out and have a little bit of fun last night. You're probably recovering right now, and I hope that you continue to feel better as we get into the new year, and it means Raw is coming. A big Raw is coming. Now, SmackDown is still staying on the USA Network, but Monday Night Raw, as we all know, if you haven't heard by now, I don't know what you're doing. Raw is coming to Netflix next Monday night. Raw has seen its final day on the USA Network, probably forever. But, crazier things have happened. WWE and USA have a great relationship. So if something funky happens with Netflix, I'm sure they have a landing spot, a home, anytime they want to go back. If they do, I doubt they will. But we likely have seen the last Monday Night Raw ever on USA, which is kind of crazy. USA has always felt like the home for Monday Night Raw, even when it was on TNN or on where else was it for a little while? Can't remember. Whatever home it was on. UPN used to be SmackDown. I'm thinking of the early days of SmackDown, but wherever it used to be, it never felt right until it was back on USA. For me, here in upstate New York, it was always Channel 28. I don't have cable now, so I don't know if that's the right channel, but for years it was always Channel 28 for USA Network, and I remember the days of recording Raw and trying to avoid the commercials so that you had a full episode of Raw recorded on a VHS tape. And I'd go and bring it to one of my friends at school who didn't have cable, and I had to, I'd show him Monday Night Raw, give him the commercial-free version. I was essentially his Hulu to get rid of the commercials, and sometimes I'd miss it, sometimes I wouldn't. But then after Raw, I believe, was La Femme Nikita. Anybody else remember that? It's a very action-heavy but sexualized show, very much in the male audience. They knew what they were doing. And Raw would sometimes go over 5-10 minutes. I'm trying to think the longest I've ever remember Raw on USA going over. Might have been 10-12 minutes. I'm sure they paid a price. Every second must have cost them tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars for every minute. But it was always, that overrun was always the big moments of Raw. That overrun you'd always look forward to, because back in the 90s, early 2000s, it was always who's coming back. The Rock's returning. A big save by Stone Cold Steve Austin. A moment with The Undertaker. A big storyline. Like, it always, that last 5 minutes of Raw used to be something so special and would leave you on such a cliffhanger. You had to see the next episode. And that's, yes, you had an all-star roster, but it was just, they had a very well-oiled machine of storytelling. And now I don't know how much that magic still exists. I think over the years it's kind of waned, and PLEs don't mean what they used to because championship matches take place on every single Monday Night Raw. There's more championships now than ever, which of course devalues all championships. They don't adhere to the brand rules, even when they say they're going to. And it just has become much more of a gymnastics production rather than an actual competition. And I heard something, and I'll give credit where credit's due. Stevie Richards, if you guys used to watch in the early 2000s, he came from most famously a group from Right to Censor, RTC, and they were essentially playing the FCC, and they were trying to censor everybody, and they were the kind of wholesome group that would look down upon the filth that was the Attitude Era, and it worked really well, and they had the most annoying theme song of all time. Those of you who have no idea who I'm talking about, I would still look up Steven Richards, the Stevie Richards Show. I'll give him a shout out. I really enjoy it on YouTube. I don't know if it's new or not, but I've been really getting into his podcast. He's very well spoken, very well done show. I think he's got about 75,000 subscribers and growing. So shout out to them. And my point from the show that I'm going to take and tell you is that there's a lack of a struggle today. Everything feels like, okay, you do your move, I do my move. There's no struggle, as if it's trying to achieve the goal of providing the illusion that this is real. You know what I mean? Everything is there's no selling anymore. It's just reacting, but there's no selling. Meaning, if you get super kicked in the face, you'll register it for about 5 seconds, and then you'll go on to the next move, tornado DDT, boom, 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 and forget about the fact that you just got kicked in the teeth 5 seconds ago. And the fans have accepted it. I still have issues with it, maybe because I dare I say, the old grumpy guy. I'll be 40 in a couple months, less than a couple months, well, a week or a month and change. So I don't know if I'm the old grumpy guy who just appreciates pro wrestling being pro wrestling, and I think that's I think it's a failed wish, because obviously evolution happens. The sport evolved, ownership has evolved. Vince and McMahon's are no longer even in power at all, which is just crazy to think. Anyway, I'm getting way off track. I apologize, but we have a big Raw coming next Monday night, and I've gone over that many times. As far as what you can expect, I even did a little bit of a preview on my show for the wrap-up of 2024, my previous show. I encourage you to go check it out, where I talked about the 3 confirmed matches. And you know what? I downplayed this Raw maybe a little bit too much, meaning the Raw that took place last night. I figured, and I was still largely right, but not completely, that this was an inconsequential Raw. It was nothing more than a preview for next week. And I'm sure a lot of the fans in attendance during commercial were getting super annoyed that I'm sure on the Titantron they saw all of these video packages for next week. And they essentially got that with Liv and Rhea. They got nothing other than that, which was a video package. And, you have the promotion of Roman and Solo for next week, obviously CM Punk and Seth Rollins. But even though they didn't get the match of CM Punk and Seth Rollins, they got a hell of a segment with these two, and we'll get into that a little bit later with their promo that, I've been waiting for that fire from Punk, because it feels like Punk has been kind of holding back. He's been kind of the nice guy. I'm here to he said he's not here to make friends, but he very much felt like he was still there to be nice and kind and pretend he's a nice guy, but deep down that devil still is there. And I do believe that's true. And he came out. That part of him came out in that promo with Seth. And I really enjoyed that. And I still believe that this is leading to a Seth Rollins heel turn, hopefully aligning with McIntyre, fighting against their common foe of the Bloodline. That's ultimately where I think it's going. And I'm finally think I'm on the train of, I'm ready for Seth now to turn heel. He's not wearing out his welcome, I think, among most casual fans, but he's been a babyface now long enough. He was the world champion, first world champion when they reintroduced it and then pretended it didn't exist. He had a heck of a run, 6 months or so, but still fun. He has found himself as a character. He's no longer the Monday Night Messiah. He's no longer the corporate shill that he was with the Authority. He knows who and what he is, right? He knows who and what he is, the visionary, the revolutionary. But that time for me, and I think the time for WWE to strike, to evolve the character again, is approaching. And they may not take this path, but I if I had the chance to, I would be the one to pull the trigger. It's time for Seth to evolve a little bit more. Back to a heel is just fine. I think it's fine. The only question is, okay, if he turns heel, who takes his place as a babyface? You've got CM Punk. He's a pretty big babyface on the roster. Is he the future of the company? No, but he doesn't need to be. And you know what? Since anybody can come over from anybody, from any roster at any time and no one cares, then what's the big deal? Honestly, turn Seth heel. I think it would reinvigorate his character that needs a little bit of a boost. And aligning with McIntyre would be a hell of a duo. So, long introduction to say, welcome to the WWE podcast, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me here again on this New Year's Eve as I record this. Likely New Year's Day or beyond as you listen to this. And I want to invite you, if you haven't already, to check out our Patreon site because everything there is ad-free. You can go up in tier, get exclusive shows, including the After Dark show. There is also an opportunity for you to come on the show if you go up high in tier enough, and other perks. So check it out. It's WWE Podcast on Patreon or patreon.com/WWE Podcast or Apple. There's also the subscribe button there, and both offer a 1-week free trial. So let's dive into Raw. Let's dive into it, and we'll start at the top of the show. And to open the show, which, by the way, was from Houston, Texas, and the Toyota Center, we had Joe Tessitore talk about Raw on USA Network. It's the final Raw, saying SmackDown's still going to remain on USA. And New Day come out. Kofi Kingston and Xavier make their way out. It's interesting that they haven't actually dissolved the New Day. They just evolved it. So they're still being introduced as the New Day, which I'm kind of split on how I feel about it. I'll let the story play out. But New Day sucks chance broke out, and they stood on the ring apron. Kofi tried to tell the fans they had limited time, and the boos continued. So they're Dominic Mysterioing these guys. And here's what I would say. If I'm king of WWE fans and I get to rule, and I get to make my decree, here's what my decree is. We don't have to Dominic Mysterio every heel that's doing a good job, or anybody that means they're doing what they're supposed to do, eliciting a negative reaction. And I understand that it's heat and it's fun for a little while, and it's a real way to show them that we'll shut you up because we can be louder than you and we'll interrupt your promo. I think it's partly for them, partly for the fans to do it, even though I think that it's actually detrimental to the show, because here's what happens. Dominic Mysterio, for example, has barely had or been able to evolve as a character because he hasn't been able to speak. And sure, you can do pre-cut promos, you can do backstage stuff where the crowd is a non-factor, but where you really grow is with the crowd. You really grow in front of people, not backstage, not in front of a camera backstage where you're kind of shielded from the noise. You can get the message across that way in some cases, but it's limited. So I'm really hoping that this isn't a weekly occurrence and it's not monkey see, monkey do, and every town they go to, they don't allow Kofi or Xavier to speak. Because sure, for like a show or two, it's like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, they shut them down and WWE has to adjust on the fly and all. Like, fine. But I really want to hear what they have to say. You can boo what they have to say, but shut up while they're talking. And I think WWE fans don't understand they're doing themselves a disservice down the line, because you'll suddenly realize, wow, this person hasn't even cut a promo. We haven't even heard what they have to say or why or what their deep reasoning is. We're just booing them, and actually we're shooting ourselves in the foot here when it comes to storytelling and character development. I don't think fans really realize that. So I actually want to hear what Kofi and Xavier have to say. You can boo them. Just let us hear the words. So that's my decree, and you all must follow or be imprisoned. So Jey Uso comes out, though, and we have, once he's in the ring, Woods said that they go way back with Jey. And Jey told the fans to quiet so they could hear what, quote, this chump has to say. And Woods was still booed. So you had Jey try to help them. And even Jay's like, well, F it. Yeah, I tried. It's kind of the same thing in a different way with Seth Rollins' music, where the fans used to, but not so much anymore, do the whoa, they extend the song, and it would go on way too long. It's kind of that same thing. I mean, the fans can have a negative effect when they go into business for themselves. And this, I know WWE would argue it, but there is a case to be made for this actually being a long-term net negative, with the fans not allowing heels to speak. But, all right. So, A New Day sucks chant broke out. Woods got upset. And Jay said there are other problems to address. He said Roman Reigns would handle Solo and he'll handle Drew. And he called out Drew. That's when the Bloodline showed up on the big screen. Solo, Jacob, and Tama Tonga. And Solo said Sammy got a little too close on Friday, and Solo said the Ulufala will stay on his neck forever. He said he will destroy Roman Reigns next week in the Tribal Combat match. And everyone, Jay and everyone else will acknowledge him. Drew then entered the ring and attacked Jay with a cheap shot, and we had Jay try to fight back. He went for the Claymore. Security and agents pulled him back. McIntyre seemed like he was going to go up the ramp. He made it all the way to the top, ran back, and hit the Claymore, which is just great. Just great. I mean, Drew is just great. So I was sad we didn't get to hear him actually say something this week, because Drew on the microphone is, I mean, it's one of the highlights, one of the bright spots, not just of the show, but like of my week, is hearing Drew on the McIntyre on the mic. So it kind of, I don't know if that's a referendum of my life, but it is one of the bright points of my week when I get to see what Drew has to say. He's just so miserable, but he's a truth-telling machine, and I just, it's a great combo. It's a refreshing brand of heel is what it is. Heels seem so formulaic that they always have to cheat to win. They always lie. And sure, like that's a tried and true formula. It'll work. But I think that this is just a nice change of pace, a different brand of heel that we haven't seen. All right. So backstage, Kathy Kelly interviewed American Made, and Gable said he's sick of the talk that he can't win a title and he has trouble with luchadors. He said he would cross one off his list by beating Otis to show that the master remains the master. And that's when we had Chad Gable versus Otis. We finally get it. We finally get it. It feels about 3 months late, and it's certainly not as hot as this program once was. But it lasted 9 minutes and 20 seconds with Gable beating Otis. Now, here's how he did it. Gable tripped Otis into the ropes to break the hold and then hit a deadlift German suplex. Gable went for a top rope move that Otis avoided. Otis then played to the crowd. Niall grabbed one of Otis's legs for a moment, but he didn't budge. Gable took advantage of the distraction and put Otis in an ankle lock until he tapped. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. Now, fun match. But for Otis to lose clean to the heel, that tells me they have potentially bigger plans for Chad. Not saying world title picture, but Otis has been pretty over for a while and was actually as hot as he ever was against Chad when this whole thing originally boiled over 3 months ago or 6 months ago, whatever it was. Actually, it was when the Wyatts debuted, is when it really peaked 6 months ago. And you're thinking, okay, here we go. And it never happened. And then they get to it 6 months later. And we have Chad beat Otis. Sure, you could say he was distracted, but he still tapped out. He quit. Big win for Chad. Big win. All right, we got a video package for Rhea and Liv for next week's Women's Championship match. Fun. It was a fun promo. That's probably all they could have done this week. Ripley saying that it was supposed to be Mommy's year in 2024, and she said that after a year-long reign, she walked into and out of WrestleMania as Women's World Champion, and she took her eye off the ball and paid for it ever since. Morgan talked about taking the women's championship, the Judgment Day, and Dominic from Ripley. From Ripley. Morgan said that she's been having so much fun that she's sad it has to end. So this is all they could do. And I'm not sad that neither woman was actually there, because what are they going to do? What are they going to do? Have Ripley do the same thing she's been doing for the last 5 months? No. And interrupt and chase Liv Morgan into the crowd and grab her and then grab Dom. And it felt like I've seen that play over and over and over. This also feels very conclusive that this is the final match for these two in this particular program. That's good, because fans are ready. I'm ready. Let's do it one more time, run it back, and have some fun. And then we'll be off here. And that tells me if this is over, then there's no title change. Because if Rhea won it, you'd think that Liv would try to get it back. And they're not going to go there. So the fact that this is the final matchup, based on what they've said anyway, that leads you to believe that there's a very strong possibility that Liv retains here. And I think she should, honestly. All right, let's continue. We've got the Judgment Day. Let's see, coming out. Or I'm sorry, not yet. Although they did have new music, we'll get to that. The next match, was Dakota Kai versus Zoe Stark. And it's for the Women's IC title tournament semi-final match. This match was really good. And it lasted, I'm trying to look at the timestamp here. I never, ever get it right. 8 minutes and 15 seconds. There it is. Dakota Kai wins. Really good match. Probably Zoe Stark and Dakota Kai's best match on Raw. No, not just together, but separately against any other opponents. I enjoyed this. Zoe Stark, while she's changing a little bit of her look, still kind of feels bland. Dakota Kai, after her turn on Bayley, remember that? We all forgot about that. She seemed to get the majority of the support from the crowd, I think, where Dakota Kai, the fans, I guess, decided during the match that Dakota Kai was the babyface and Zoe Stark's the heel. But Zoe Stark, ever since she aligned herself with Trish and the thank you Trish stuff, she's still trying to, I think, wipe herself clean of that, because that's the last significant program that Zoe Stark was in, was with Trish. So Dakota Kai, I think, was the right call here to win. So Dakota Kai will be in the finals for the women's IC title and will face the winner of Io versus Lyra, which we know the winner of that. We'll get to it. All right. Then we got another video package here. And by the way, I know the finish was botched on that match. It's still enjoyable. So let's see here. We got a little bit of a recap of the first episode of Raw on January 11th, 1993. And crazy. And we got, let's see, a brief ad of John Cena's farewell tour that'll be starting next week on Raw. Again, a lot of hype for next week. And then we got Damian Priest and the War Raiders versus Finn, Dom, and JD with Carlito. This match was 9 minutes. Again, not another really exciting or long match. It ended with Dominic getting pinned after he got caught with South of Heaven by Damian Priest. But I feel like, how many times have we seen this? Another program that does need to also kind of come to a conclusion, come to an end, come to a rebirth. I don't know. It needs to also move on. I don't need to see Rhea or Damian feud with anybody anymore from the Judgment Day. Everybody needs to move on. I understand there's still some unresolved issues with Damian and with Finn. It seems to be that they might conclude that as well. I hope they do. It's been fun. It's been good. It's been real, as they say. But I don't know. I'm ready. And it's not a slight on the program, but it has to know when this life cycle is up, and I think it's up. All right. So then we got Ludwig Kaiser standing in the ring. And he's referred to himself as European elegance, and started to talk about Braun Breaker, but he was interrupted by Sheamus, who comes out. He's dressed in street clothes. He fought with Kaiser, hit a knee strike, and then Sheamus played to the crowd and hit Kaiser with a brogue kick. A bit disappointing for Kaiser here, who's been building momentum with the endorsement of Gunther. And I've been of the belief that Kaiser is and will be a future champion in the next 6 to 8 months. After WrestleMania, Kaiser should, I think, become IC or US champion. He has really, I think, grown as a character. Does he still have a long way to go? Yes. He's not fully developed, not by any means. But his backstage development with Gunther giving him stamps of approval, giving him advice, even though Kaiser has not exactly been able to cash in on all that, I think it's still been a positive run for Kaiser, coming close to winning the IC title from Breaker, having moments of domination over Sheamus, and now Sheamus is back for revenge. Okay, we then have backstage, Rey Mysterio stood with the rest of the LWO and praised Otis, who was with Alpha Academy, for standing up to his mentor. No, that you don't get praise for doing something that you should have done 6 months ago and allow yourself to be humiliated and emasculated on national television in front of millions of people for weeks and weeks and weeks. You don't get credit for that, Mr. Moral Compass. I'm speaking to Rey, who is just, I don't know. I don't like Rey as a character. I know a lot of you love Rey, and in the ring I have nothing but respect for him, but his character is such a soft, gooey character. I've never enjoyed his character at all. I think, he's too nice and too kind and doesn't have any kind of edge at all. But we then have New Day, yes, Kofi and Xavier, come in the picture, mockingly applauding Rey for being a locker room leader, and Rey said he and one of his allies would face them in a match. And that's when Io Sky comes out here for the second half of the women's IC title tournament semifinals. Io versus Lyra. This match went nearly 12 minutes, which for a women's match, I mean, in some weeks, this is like 4 or 5 women's matches wrapped into one, time-wise. So this was fun to see. Lyra and Io were, I think, pretty well matched. A lot of fans disappointed here as Lyra does beat Io Sky in 12 minutes to advance. So it's going to be Dakota Kai versus Lyra Valkyria for the Women's IC Championship. Io Sky, I mean, I figured it was Io's to win here. Now they're using it to elevate newer talent. Io has, really, I think, made a name for herself. She was women's champion. She was a SmackDown women's champion. But I think that they're looking to get a new face. And Dakota Kai and or Lyra Valkyria, I think, would both be fine champions for what they're trying to do here. But it felt like this was Io's to win. She had a hell of a lot of momentum going in. Fans were starting to get behind her. Fans forgot about the damage control nonsense. And they just started to realize, wow, or be reminded how good Io Sky is in the ring. So it was disappointing, too, for me to see her lose to somebody that has nothing going on character-wise. Nothing. Lyra has nothing going on. But, I mean, I guess they know better than I do. Really good match, though. I mean, you can make this the match of the night candidate. These two women, if I see them fight again, I would gladly watch. And the finish of this was a roll-up, but it was countered into a pin and got the 3 count. A very unique pin. It wasn't your typical roll-up pulling of the tights. It was very well done where Lyra was holding down the shoulders of Io in kind of a bridge roll-up, if you will. And it was good. It was good. I enjoyed this. So, final segment here. After another video package for Roman and Solo in the Tribal Combat match for the Ula Fala next week. So, we have Seth Rollins come out. And talking about 2024, it's the last Raw on USA Network. What do you say we go out with a bang? He put over his match with Punk as the biggest match in the business and said it would be the self-proclaimed best in the world versus the actual best in the world. And Rollins said he'll be on every Raw every week. You can't say the same thing for Punk if things don't go his way. And Punk's music hit. He walked out. And Rollins, he called Rollins, or asked Rollins which, quote, paragon of virtue. Where the hell do you get that phrase? I mean, really. He said that. I'm like, where did you carry a thesaurus around with you? I don't understand, but all right. So he said he, quote, he got the take your ball and go home line from, because that's what Seth had told him earlier, that he's going to take his ball and go home, where Seth will be on Raw every week. And I'm glad Punk called this out. He called it the most industry plant cliched bootlicker line he's ever heard. He said that's what he said. That's what was said when a man was told no or that he was wrong. Punk asked if Steve Austin took his ball and went home. He asked if Rollins if the man took her ball and went home too. And Punk said Rollins wants to tell the fans that he abandoned them, but Rollins is just mad because he abandoned him. Punk said he has no regrets. And then he asked Rollins how his neck is. Punk asked about his knee, about his insides after what Bronson Reed did to him. And I'm surprised he didn't ask about the back. Remember the back injury that we had Shinsuke Nakamura play off of? His back was hanging on by a thread, by like a couple of cells. That's all that was left, was like two nerve endings that were touching, and that's all that was left. I mean, that's what we were told to believe, and then magically that got healed. So it's weird that he didn't talk about his back. When he talked about his knee and his neck, I'm like, wait a minute, are there now injuries we don't know about? Because as a fan, I'm thinking the latest and greatest injury that we all knew was going on was the back. And that was a real injury that he worked through with Shinsuke. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I know he blew out his knee, but that was before WrestleMania, like 8 years ago, at a house show with Sheamus. And so I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? So I don't know. I hope there's no more injuries to Seth. But this was a fun promo. Now, it continued, and I don't want to go through every line here, but the little brother stuff came up. Again, the take your ball and go home thing, it is overused. And it was originally, I remember when that line was originally mentioned, and it was with Stone Cold Steve Austin. It was, I believe, if I'm correct, the first time it was uttered was on a show called Bite This. Anybody remember that show? It was hosted by Mean Gene Okerlund. And it was kind of a podcast before there were podcasts. Kind of a show, interview show, or a inside behind the scenes show before that was kind of trendy to do. It was a show ahead of its time, no doubt about it. But it was a show that I think doesn't get enough attention, where a lot of interesting things were said and done on that show that were very real. And this is when Austin refused to do the job to Brock Lesnar in 2002 during a semifinal match, a quarterfinal match with Brock Lesnar, an unadvertised match in Atlanta, Georgia. And Austin famously walked out. And that's when Vince went on the show and said, you know, Austin took his ball and went home, and obviously I'm pissed off. And that's true. There's nothing fake about that. Nothing pre-taped about that. So that's the first time I remember hearing it. And then The Rock uttered it a few times afterwards about Stone Cold, and others have as well. And you've heard it before. You've heard it about John Cena and anybody else that's left. You heard it even about The Rock taking his ball and leaving the company. And so anyone that leaves, this line is used, and it's overly used. And I'm glad Punk actually called that out. So And also talking about Becky Lynch. That was an interesting... I did not expect him to talk about Becky Lynch, how she's not here. And then Punk comes back and says, she's decided to take some time off to raise their child. And it's something he'd know nothing about. As we know, Punk and his wife don't have kids. So fun jabs all around here. And we then have Rollins talk about how Punk left, went on his buddy's podcast, Colt Cabana, and he took every shot at the company to kill it, and said, then you took a big chunk of change to go to the competition. How'd that work out for you? And the crowd was like, oh my God, they indirectly referenced AEW. Honestly, what's more shocking is they actually referenced AEW as competition. They're not, they're competition in the fact that they're in the same market space, competing for the same fans, but they're not a true competitor in the sense that there's any real rivalry going on of who's going to take the top spot, or, a Monday Night War-esque type of rivalry where WCW wins this week, WWE loses this week, and all the rest. AEW is nowhere near WWE's foothold in the global wrestling, in global wrestling fans, brand awareness. Just they aren't there. They've got a lot of cash, but cash doesn't produce results. It just allows you to produce a lot of potential. So anyway, that was interesting. And again, the crowd really on that one. Rollins said Punk wants to come back in and wave the flag, but he doesn't get to. And Rollins said Punk will take on another 10 years off because he'll be making the decision for Punk, essentially meaning he's going to put him back into retirement or just beat him so bad that he's going to take a lot of time off. Punk said you can recognize the pioneers because of the arrows in their back, and said it was the first one. He was the first one through the wall, and he got bloody for it. Punk said Rollins wouldn't be there if it wasn't for him. And this was another really fun line. I love the place I worked. I just hated the guy in charge. And he loved you. Vince McMahon, obviously. That's, again, referencing two people you didn't think he'd talk about indirectly, not by name, Becky Lynch and Vince McMahon. Punk said that in situations where Rollins should have had his back, all he did was shoot arrows in it. And Punk recalled Rollins stabbing Roman Reigns in the back, and how he's now trying to play victim in a situation that he created. Punk said those arrows kill weak people. He said he left because he had to. And after some time, he was able to pull the arrows out. He's going to bring those arrows to the match next week. Figuratively, of course. So, good promo. I didn't cover every little nugget of it, but I hit the big points. And this should be a fun match. And it does still make me wonder if this is still a one-off for the time being. To get to it so that these two can go their separate ways for whatever WrestleMania plans they have. I haven't figured it out yet, and I think we'll figure it out next week. I really don't know. I don't know if this is the one-off, if it's the, okay, guys, here, you got the match. We got to get through WrestleMania season. We've got other plans for these two other than these two facing each other, which is why we're doing this now. That makes more sense to me, because if this is really WrestleMania, you're giving away WrestleMania right now. Why they don't do that. That's not WWE's MO. And that leads me to believe that this is just a hold me over, see, we did the match type of match with an eventual proper program maybe down the line. So that's how I'm thinking. Or maybe it does continue and it goes through the Rumble with these two in the Rumble, or they have a match of the Rumble and they go through Elimination Chamber, Saturday Night Main Event, whatever else, and it ends in, say, February. It ends in like a month and a half. End of February. Through the Chamber, and then the Chamber's it with these two. Something like that. And then they have separate programs going into WrestleMania. My point, though, is still, I don't believe these two go to WrestleMania and face one another, as they were scheduled to last year until the injury to Punk. So, interesting that they are going to be on Monday Night Raw in a in the main event of Raw, deservingly so. But this has been reduced to the main event of Raw, where it was going to be one of the semi-main events of WrestleMania 40. Man. I mean, I'm glad they're getting to it. But whatever plans they have for these two going into WrestleMania 41, if it's not facing each other, and I don't think it is, they must have a heck of a plan. They must already know what they're doing for WrestleMania, because if they didn't, they wouldn't give this match away knowing that they had it in their back pocket to pull out for these two for WrestleMania. So we'll have to see what they do. I still believe that this is a kind of a one and done for the time being. And so, well, that's the quick and dirty Raw review. Overall, a show that had more content and things to talk about than I thought there would be. Very much still, though, a preview show for the big show next week. And what a show it's going to be. John Cena. I think John Cena is going to open Raw. That makes the most sense to me. Who's going to interrupt him? I don't know. I've made my stance very clear about John Cena, how I want him to be serious, not tongue-in-cheek. If he's going to be Cena, be Cena. And if you have the chance to go see him, guys, go see him. I keep saying that. This is literally the last time he's giving everybody as much of a chance as he can, touring around the country, touring around the world, saying, you guys want to see me? Let's go. Now, this is your chance. And it's true. There's nothing fake about that whatsoever. So, well, anyway, hope you guys enjoyed Raw as well. You can catch this show ad-free at patreon.com/WWE podcast. We'll be coming back to you tomorrow with maybe a nostalgia show and After Dark for those of you on Patreon. And we will also be doing a mailbag show on Friday and also doing SmackDown and Back to Your Weekend Review this coming Sunday. So lots coming up, including the NXT review as well. We posted our main event review with Daniel from the UK. We've got that up if you want to check that out. So hope you guys do. And appreciate you listening. And also check out YouTube. I'm in the amateur stage of YouTube. Okay. You look at the videos, you're like, oh, I didn't even have the right orientation. It's not very well produced, but sound quality is really good. And I'm trying to find my footing on YouTube. So give us a follow on YouTube. Give us a subscribe on YouTube. You know how to search for it. I think you got the name down, right? So, alrighty. Well, that'll do it for me, everybody. Hope you all had a great new year. And we'll be talking next time.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.